Okay. My name is Jamie Staten, and I'm the Family Engagement Specialist here at TRECA. And thank you for joining us. We are going to be talking about our federal programs here at TRECA, and we have our consultant, Mr. Ron Stewart. He will be walking us through the slides and talking about the different programs that we have. And what we're going to be talking about today is the school-wide plan, the school parent and family engagement policy, the school family pledge, the parents' right to know, the use of title funds, the one plan, and the action team for partnerships. So, Mr. Stewart, I will go ahead and turn the session over to you now.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry that I was a little bit late there. And I'll make it up to you by maybe not holding class for a little bit longer, but I do apologize. TRECA, as you know, has been around for over 20 years and has done just amazing things with digital education. And I hope your students are prospering and that they're learning, and that you likewise are learning how to become more involved in their education. Federal programs over the past 50 years have really been such that originally in 1965, the federal government knocked on the school door and left some opportunities dealing with funding and programs. Today, the federal government has knocked on the door and come in and has given us additional funds, but with additional accountability. And I think that that's been good for education overall. Rather than just providing funds, they're also demanding that we be accountable for those in terms of student improvement from their scores, their ability to read, their ability to do mathematics, their overall well-being. So it's really come a long way, and it has been very good. Tonight, we want to review a couple of things. And the first thing is that anything that we do is planned in detail, and really in high detail, for the programs that we actually engage in, offer. The planning tool that we use is called is based on a process called school improvement. And that's where we're continuously improving our model. We look at a lot of data. We examine things such as student performance, student attendance is included in that, parent attendance to the meetings. We have surveys. We work with our staff to determine what they need. And it is actually one of the things that ends up to be our school-wide plan. And that plan looks at, let me give you some of the areas that it looks at. It looks at curriculum in terms of what we are doing with our teaching and learning environment, what we plan on doing with our teaching and learning environment, and more importantly, the accountability for that by looking at what are the results. We try not to do things from the standpoint of just putting a program out there and hoping that it works. We do a lot of our programming, most of it actually, on the basis of research. And the results the research gives us is a better opportunity to address student needs. And that is very, very important. We've actually gotten to the point where programs, if somebody comes along with a program, we don't say, well, gee, that looks just fine. It's bells and whistles. We want to see the research behind it. We want to see how it's implemented, and then we might consider it with the whole idea that we're still going to evaluate it after a period of time that's been implemented. And that's what the school improvement plan, our school improvement plan does, the school-wide plan. So we look at the curriculum. We also look at professional development. Our staff, and I know that you've probably spoken with some of the teachers, Ms. Staten, Mrs. Westendorf. Our staff is highly, highly trained. When the federal government about 10 years ago brought in a notion called highly qualified teachers, which means that the staff is, in addition to be licensed, additional time with professional development, that they were on the upper level of professionalism through education. And we found that we've carried that through, even though that law is no longer here. Our teachers are highly qualified, not only with license, but hours of training, success in training, which includes observations, which includes evaluations, and in some cases retraining. But we look at that area quite closely. So you've got curriculum, professional development. We look at the parent engagement plans. Parent engagement is very difficult. If you look, we have 2 or 3 parents here. We have probably a couple thousand kids. It's a difficult thing to get parents involved in. And we did have our meeting about 3 weeks ago, and we did have quite a few parents at that meeting. We believe that the 3 families that are here tonight are the most important families that we have, because you're here and you can give us some advice, some direction. But parent involvement is very difficult. And if you know any of the parents, or if you've talked to any of the parents, see if you can get them to come to some of our meetings. It'd be beneficial for them, and it'd be beneficial for us. We want to have that interlocking of our staff with you. The more we know you and your child, the better off we're going to be in terms of teaching, and the child better off in terms of learning. Those are the facts, actually, with regard to the result of good parent involvement. The plan for parent involvement, we try to get surveys. We try to talk with you. We'll get some ideas from you throughout the year. Our teachers, who obviously talk with parents daily, in many cases, in most cases, that's where we get a lot of the information of what we need to do for parents. Mrs. Staten and Mrs. Westendorf, they provide that ability, that avenue to participate in the parent engagement plans. And we do this, and I'm sure you know, and you may be parties of it. We have students all over the state of Ohio. So we do parent skills development throughout Ohio, through field trips, through the presentations that we do. And it's just very, very important that we have you as our partners. Another piece of the school-wide plan has to do with how do we actually look at students who are not performing as well as they could have. Their performance is below par. TRECA has always been set up on a continuous improvement model, in which we take students who are not performing well and move them from one step to another step to another step, like a ladder, so that we know that we can get kids to learn. They can address sometimes the fearsome state testing and do well, do better each time that they're engaged in that. But that's one of the things that we do look at, are those children who are not doing as well as they could have. The teachers actually look at the kids through a number of ways. It's not always just a test. It's in their skills on the computer that we learn about them. We talk with them. We get a feel for where they're at in terms of learning. And then we try to build almost an individual curriculum for each of the children so that they get the benefit of what we're learning. They get the benefit of the multitude of resources that we have, which that also goes in the resources that we have for curriculum development, for professional development, for parent development, for students who are not performing well. Our resources are certainly many. We look at programs that we can start children. We've got youngsters who might be in the 7th or 8th grade and only reading on the 3rd grade level. That's not a problem for Trekka. It's not a problem for us. It's not a problem for our teachers, because we can muster our resources to take that child from their reading level on up to where they should be. And the same for the other subjects, whether it's science, social studies, mathematics. It's all tough. It's not an easy road. You just don't put a new program in front of somebody and say, well, that's it. It's going to work. Now, thank goodness we have great teachers, and they take the programs and put the human touch to it in terms of their ability to deal with the education of the children. And that basically comes down to the last rung of the school-wide program, which it entails, again, going back and evaluating where we've been and where we're going. And that's part of these meetings, is just to look back and look forward in terms of how we see the year unfolding and how the year has been. We'll do this again in the spring. Behind the scenes that you can't see that's what actually happens. This is kind of like a general meeting in terms of what the process is in many cases. The real work is behind the scenes with teachers, with supervisors, with our curriculum people. We also include, and not to be left out, all of our kids with special needs. We include them, we include their parents, and look at how the programs are actually beneficial for them. So that's the school-wide plan. The next thing that we have is our parent engagement plan. And our family engagement plan really changes over time. We look at our parents, we look at the demographics of our parents, we take a look at things the parents have told us, and it's a good document. You need to read it. It basically sets out what we think at this time would be our best approach to getting you to engage with us. And we'll change it here and there, probably. And you always think you turned off everything, you didn't. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. There we go. As Mrs. Staten knows, I'm a technological guru. I can't get the off and on button on my computer, but at any rate, getting the phone turned off, I can do, but I just forgot. But with the parent engagement policy, you need to just take a look at some of the provisions in there. Those provisions really include your abilities to participate. And I'd like to point out one thing that's very important, is that we don't leave it for guessing of what we're going to do. We actually ask the parents, what do you think should be included in this? And we ask our staff what should be included in this. And so you'll see notes in the policy that really are meant to engage you and engage ourselves in that mutual practice of getting involved, getting to know each other as parents and teachers. One of the things that you are that we try to provide under the law is an opportunities opportunities for you to participate in parent training. What does that mean? It's not to be a better parent, but it is so that perhaps you can learn more about how you can support your child at home. And we'd like to have you look at the policy and give us some suggestions of what the changes would look like from your standpoint. But you are entitled to that. And we're going to talk about the parents' rights just shortly, and we'll go through some of the things that you're entitled to. The school family pledge, again, is an attempt to get at a contract, if you will, an unsigned contract, an understanding between what we're going to provide you and your child in terms of education, in terms of support, in terms of success. On the other end of things, we also have said this is what we need from parents. And I think that, in this day and age of people saying, well, we need to be more involved, and they don't take advantage of it. We want you to be involved, and we need to get a hold of those parents who are not involved to be engaged with us. And this pledge is about that. The pledge changes from time to time, depending on what we see. It's interesting over time, too, that a lot of things remain the same. You've probably heard the old saying, the more we change, the more we are the same. And that's true, because there's certain foundations to all of these things. Parent engagement, the parent pledge, the aspects of what we need to teach and learn, those oftentimes remain the same. But take a look at those two documents and give us feedback on it. You can go through Mrs. Staten, Ms. Westendorf, or any of your teachers, and they'll send the information back to us. But we'd like for you to really take a look at that. Parents' right to know. Again, if you read the headlines, you'd almost think that we don't want anybody to participate with us. And that's just totally not true. We value your input. We value your ideas. We think it's the way that we can improve. And so we have a whole body of people come together to give us different ideas. Critique us. We're not afraid of that. But also give us some stepping stones, if you will, to be better in your eyes, better in the student's eyes, better in our eyes. Here are some of the things that you have a right under the federal law to be involved in. You can be involved in the planning aspects of programs. Typically, that's throughout the year. You can help us with evaluation, and you can help us with funding. We don't, do you think we'll be able to? Yes, thank you very much. If you left that on, my dogs will start to bark too. And so I appreciate that. But with the funding, we're not asking you for funding. We're asking you to support things that we are doing with our funding and understand those things. You have a right under the law, and it's been this way for about 20 years almost, that you have the right to go through our officials at our central office in Marion, and you can ask for the credentials of any of our staff. And primarily it's for teachers, but you can ask, and you're not going to get a full resume, but you'll be able to hear about their license, perhaps where they went to school, those types of things. But that's important. That's been around for, as I said, 20 years. And I've been in some large school districts. And, with in Columbus or Cleveland, you have, 50, 60,000 kids and all those parents. Very few parents request teacher backgrounds. They just do. And I think that's two things. One is they may not be interested. But the second is that they have faith in the teachers that are put before their kids and working with their kids. And I think at Trecca, we get very few requests. We're obligated to answer those requests, but we get very few requests. And I think that's because we have done a good job of the teachers working with you, working with the kids. But that is your right to ask us for what they're licensed in. So you have that. The funds that you get into, the biggest fund, there are two large funds that we work with. One is the first one, Title I instructional support. That's the one that really requires the most out of planning, evaluation, the testing, and it gives us the most money to hire teachers to help those kids not doing as well as they could, to provide some measure of supplies, programs. We get into all the parent involvement with those funds, and that's about $600,000-$700,000, and that goes quick. That's a lot of money, but it does go quick. And we have a treasurer, Jessica Wake, who can tell you every dollar where it went. And she stays on top of that. And also our administrative staff does the same in terms of looking at how we operate those funds. But Title I is an old program. It came about in 1965, and it has stayed the test of time with Congress. You got to remember, all these programs and all the funding comes out of Congress. And I'm happy to say that with regard to the educational funds over years, they've tended to grow maybe 1 or 2% a year, but they haven't struck down the program. It would be a shame to knock these programs out because they serve kids across the country very well. Schools would be different if they didn't have these supplemental funds. Title IIA is a professional development fund, and basically that goes for our teachers and staff. You can't be in the teaching profession today unless you're always growing with the kids. It's not a matter of reading ahead the night before. The professionalism of educators today is that they are planning and evaluating and making changes in their instruction almost daily, if not weekly, to meet the needs of their kids. And these funds, which are probably a couple $100,000 at times, those go for training when we bring in people from the university or from other sources to come in and work with our teachers collectively or individually. It also provides opportunities to go on a professional field trip, if you will, to places that provide, again, information, building blocks that we can come back and evaluate and see if it's good for us. But professional development is very important. Title IV, it's called Learning Supports in General. It came through really as a basis for, at first it was for drug and drug-free environments. That's what it was probably 20 years ago. Pardon me. It was a very small fund, but it came out of that need from parents. Today, it encompasses the whole well-being of kids. They talk about everything from added instruction in STEM education. That's the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics programs. It comes in the way of supporting the kids who are not learning as well. It provides for professional development. It also provides for counseling through, and people don't like to hear it, but mental health. And we don't mean it in the mental health in terms of a dysfunction disease. We're talking about mental health in terms of wellness, emotionally. And so we do some of that with our counseling staff that we have. So it provides those types of things. It provides an ability to support more technology education, both from a professional development standpoint as well as a parent and student standpoint. The Expanding Opportunities Grant, and let me just tell you, the Title IV is a small grant. When I say small, I don't mean it's about $100,000. It's not small money, but in terms of compared to Title I, the Expanding Opportunities again supports the Title IV in that we can look for things such as expanding our STEM programs, extending our music programs, social studies. It really gets into allowing a school to use these funds to supplement and enrich the school environment. We use some of it for field trips. So it's a good grant. Again, it's not very large, but it has the largest has to do with the planning and the implementation by the staff who are engaged in the school. They're passionate about the kids and they want to do well for everyone. So those funds are well received and well used. Special education, in 1976, the Congress recognized that we have a number of kids who have some special needs that weren't being served. And they brought about the Students for Disabilities Act in 1976. And that's where we started with really evaluating kids and starting to see where the deficiencies were, but more importantly, from a research base, from a scientifically based look, is to see what we can do about it. And so they had the opportunities to do evaluations with the school psychologists, the school counselors, the testing criteria. But then we had to come up with what's called an individual education plan, an IEP. So you may be familiar with that. That really details out what the child needs and how we're going to fill it. And it actually is a bit of a contract between the school and the parents and the child. And if you're involved, you know that we have meetings. You're going to have to excuse me for just a second. Pardon me, I've had a little bit of a cold. But at any rate, the special education is really important for us. Those dollars amount to about another $600,000. And we provide staff, provide training, we provide opportunities for parents. The last thing that we want to talk about, via this whole COVID instance, it's good that we got the funds because of COVID. Unfortunately, COVID was really devastating to many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And as well, it was very devastating to business and likewise schools. One of the things that happened with schools, we couldn't have school. People were going to a digital program. I don't think we missed any school days because of COVID, which is interesting. Everybody was kind of calling us and saying, well, how do you do this? What they didn't understand, you just don't say we're going to start a school with our computers. It's a time-tested type of educational program. You just don't step into it and say, well, we're going to start a TRECA like TRECA does it. Well, you just don't do that. But we were fortunate we didn't have the uh, we didn't have the problems that most school districts, bricks and mortar school districts, had, but we did receive funds. Pardon me, and they came in the area of the elementary and secondary emergency relief funds. There's part one, part two. There's the American Recovery programs. All of that was COVID based, and we ended up using a lot of the monies for staff, and we're talking about line staff, teachers, support staff, curriculum. We used a lot of it for curriculum. We've used a lot of it for professional development. So we've made use of a lot of the programs. The unfortunate thing is that most of these programs will cease to be at the end of this year, and we'll have one more year with our ARP, the American Recovery programs, and that will cease the following year. But we've made the most of the money, and we have programs to show for it. We have professional development has been really good, and I think it's going to show in our testing of the children of how good it really has been. So those are the federal programs that we do. We also review the one plan. The one plan has been a good. It's been good for us because we've always been planning. So we got into the mandated one plan that the state uses to really examine our data more carefully, examining the strengths of our programs through data, examining our staff through data, and looking at what that data shows us in terms of the needs. And that plan is actually reviewed. It's reviewed at least 4 levels. It's reviewed by us after we develop the plan. It is reviewed internally. Then it's reviewed by our partners in the regional offices, and the state has various educational regional offices. It's reviewed there by a group of professionals. Then it's sent to the state and reviewed by the professionals. Our one plan includes looking at curriculum. It looks at graduation, looks at safe and healthy students, and it really focuses on the meat and bones of how a school actually operates, the environment of the school. And so we do that, and we don't take it for granted. We don't fill out a paper and then just not touch it. We look at it continuously. So the one plan is very helpful and becomes our school-wide plan in the end. We look at partnerships in parents, partnerships for parents, include our partnership being you and I, some cases the students, to really work together to see how we can build. And I've talked about that earlier a little bit, but we use the research-based programs from Johns Hopkins University, and specifically Joyce Epstein's types of family involvement. Mrs. Staten, Mrs. Westendorf can tell you more about that, but it really gets into depth through research of what we're talking about, how we get our action teams to really get up and go. And if you're interested in that, I would suggest that you get a hold of either one of our colleagues here and help us look at that. But the whole goal is the relationship between home and school, and give you the ability to work with us in this student environment so they can always be better. And that's the crux of the whole parent involvement thing. It's not necessarily, I've heard parents say, and some people will say, well, it's just a session to complain. It depends how you look at that. It's not a session that we can take the criticism. I mentioned that. We can take the criticism. We've got broad shoulders. What we want to do is turn that criticism into action plans to see why we have it and if factually it exists. Not all, frankly, and I've been in this many, many years, not all criticisms are fact-based. There's always a second, half to the story. But this is what we want you to be involved in, those action plans and partnerships. So,
Mr. Stewart, I can walk them through Action Team for Partnerships really quick if that's...
that'd be great.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for explaining to us so well how we use our federal funds. You do a great job as always. All right, so I can walk you through Action Team for Partnerships. This is an exciting family engagement initiative that we started about 2 years ago now. And we created the team, which we call ATP for short. And it's a committee of various stakeholders. So it includes teachers within our school, parents, community members. It can include students. We haven't gotten that far yet, but that is our goal. And other, various staff members here at TRECA. And what we do is we all work together to create an annual plan that helps families be involved in their students' education. And the goal, as Mr. Stewart shared, is really just to strengthen that relationship between home and school so that we're communicating both ways, that we have that two-way communication. And we really just want to empower families to be involved in their students' education so that we can learn from them and so that they can help us, by being involved within the work of our school. We do have a mission statement for ATP, so I'll read it for you here. It says, at TRECA Digital Academy, we recognize the critical role that families play in student success. It is our belief that family and community involvement results in increased achievement, engagement, and learning outcomes for students. Therefore, it is our intention to cultivate and sustain working partnerships with families and the community. And Mrs. Staten, if you can go to the next slide. Perfect. And here we have just an overview of the makeup of the ATP. So an ATP is designed to be a group of around 6 to 12 members, give or take a few, who lead our family and community involvement activities within the school. And it is based on the work of Dr. Joyce Epstein and her framework of the 6 types of family involvement, which I believe we have listed out on the next slide. All right, so here we go. Here we have the 6 types of family involvement, and this framework outlines 6 ways that schools can interact with families and invite them to be involved in their child's education. And that includes parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home, decision-making, and collaborating with the community. And here we have an outline of how the ATP is organized. Mr. Stewart just went over one plan with you. In one plan, we have our 3 goals. We have curriculum, graduation, and safe and healthy school. And what the ATP does, ATP sort of works as a family engagement arm of that plan. So ATP creates an annual plan ourselves, but it's all based off of the one plan. So what we do is we create strategies and initiatives that help support the school's work on that school improvement plan. So right now, our annual plan for ATP has strategies to assist the goal of curriculum in our school, as well as graduation. And we also have strategies that assist the work of the school in our safe and healthy schools goal. So we're all working on the same thing. ATP just helps reach families, to involve families in that planning and to involve families in that work. And then we also have a 4th goal, which is just to improve, the family engagement and culture in our school. We do have parent members in the ATP, which is really exciting. We have several members last year and this year. Right now, that membership is full, but we wanted to share that there are many other ways for families to be involved in the ATP. As membership opens up, we will certainly be asking parents to become involved if that's something that they're interested in. But if you're not able to be on the actual ATP, there are still many ways for parents to be involved. And the first is to stay up to date on school communications. So we have our school newsletters. Mrs. Staten sends out our family engagement updates through email at the beginning of each month. And we also have calls and emails with staff. So just staying up to date on those communications is a huge piece to staying involved. You can also volunteer to be your student's chaperone on field trips, or you could even attend virtual field trips with your students. We also offer a variety of surveys throughout the school year where we try to collect your input. And then lastly, we also have school-wide volunteering opportunities, such as the career day that we host in the spring that we invite parents to be a part of. And then we also have service projects. So there's just a lot of ways to be involved outside of membership in the ATP. But we wanted to share the ATP with you tonight so that we do have a very active family engagement committee led by Mrs. Staten, and that we're very excited to partner with you to support your child's education. All right, and I'll pass it back over. Uh-oh, I think you're muted.
You're muted, Ron. There you go.
You probably want to mute me, but I congratulate both of you, Ms. Westendorf and Ms. Staten, for putting this together. It's very few places that actually have put together a parent program, the ATP, the way that you have, and based on the research of Dr. Epstein, and actually have provided an implementation that gives us opportunities for parents. And I just think that's great. I haven't always seen this in the schools that I work with, so great. And I'm sure it's going to work for us, and it has been working for us. And I think parents, you can take it from just one or two folks here who represent TRECA. We're just good people, and your kids are in great hands, and we want them to improve, and we just reach out to you to help us do that improvement. We can't do it without you. Ms. Staten, do you want to sum up the evening?
Yes, thank you, Ron. That is all of the information that we have this evening. I know that we threw a lot of different information out to you. We will send out a follow-up survey for you to give us some input that way. I do just want to take a minute. If there are any questions about anything that we spoke about this evening, you can go ahead and ask your question now. Otherwise, we will go ahead and conclude for today.